A lonely cowboy opens his door on a freezing night, and what happens next changes everything. A mysterious Apache woman, a misunderstood tradition, and a silent choice that speaks louder than words. This powerful frontier story will keep you hooked till the end. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share for more unforgettable stories. The cold winds swept across the quiet plains of the American frontier, rattling the wooden walls of Daniel Carter's small ranch house. Dust lifted in soft spirals under the pale moonlight, and the distant howl of coyotes echoed through the emptiness. Daniel sat near the fireplace, his boots resting by the warmth, eyes fixed on the slow-burning logs. Life on the frontier had taught him patience and silence, but also a constant awareness of the unknown. Nights were the hardest, stretching long and still, where every sound seemed louder than it was. He had lived alone for years, ever since he left the crowded towns behind, seeking a simpler life among open land and endless sky. The quiet had become his companion, sometimes comforting, sometimes heavy. His routine rarely changed, tending to his horses, repairing fences, and watching the horizon as if expecting something to appear. But nothing ever did. That night, however, felt different. A strange unease lingered in the air, as if the wind carried more than just cold. It carried a story waiting to unfold. A sudden knock broke the stillness, sharp and unexpected. Daniel froze for a moment, listening carefully to be sure it was real. Another knock followed, softer this time, almost hesitant. He stood slowly, reaching for his lantern. Visitors were rare in this isolated land, especially at such an hour. As he approached the door, caution filled his thoughts, but curiosity pushed him forward. He opened it carefully, the hinges creaking under the strain, revealing a figure standing weakly against the night. Before him stood a young Apache woman, her face pale from exhaustion, her body trembling from the cold. Her clothing was torn and worn, as if she had traveled for days without rest. Her dark hair fell loosely around her shoulders, and her eyes held both fear and determination. She spoke in a soft, broken tone, asking for help, explaining that she had fled danger and had nowhere else to go. The wind pushed against her, as if urging her forward, making her struggle to remain standing. Daniel hesitated, his mind caught between caution and compassion. He knew well the tensions between settlers and Apache tribes. Stories of conflict had shaped the fears of many, and trust was not easily given. Yet as he looked at her, those fears seemed distant compared to the reality before him, a person in need, standing at his door in the cold. Without saying much, he stepped aside, silently offering her entry into his home, choosing humanity over suspicion. Inside, the warmth of the fire wrapped around them. Daniel quickly handed her a thick blanket and gestured toward a chair near the fireplace. She moved slowly, as if every step required effort, and sat down, pulling the blanket tightly around herself. The glow of the fire softened the tension in the room, though an unfamiliar silence remained. Daniel kept a respectful distance, unsure of what to say, yet aware that his presence alone offered some comfort. As the night deepened, the cold outside grew harsher, pressing against the cabin walls. The woman spoke again, her voice steadier now, explaining a cultural custom about seeking warmth and safety during extreme conditions. Her words were simple, but carried meaning Daniel did not fully understand. Still, he listened carefully, recognizing that her explanation came from a place of trust. He nodded quietly, showing respect even if the details were unfamiliar to him. Daniel chose his actions carefully, guided by a sense of dignity and restraint. He placed more wood on the fire, ensuring the room stayed warm, and offered her water and food without intrusion. His silence was not cold, but thoughtful, a way of giving her space without adding pressure. He understood that sometimes help did not require many words, only presence and patience. The night stretched on, but the fear that had once filled it began to fade. Though confusion lingered in his mind, Daniel remained calm and grounded. He did not question her further, nor did he let uncertainty shape his behavior. Instead, he focused on what he could control, offering safety, warmth, and respect. The storm outside continued to move across the plains, but inside the cabin, a quiet understanding was forming. Two strangers from different worlds shared the same space, bound not by language or culture, but by a simple act of kindness. Morning light slowly filled the cabin, pushing away the shadows that had lingered through the long night. The wind had calmed, and the plains outside looked peaceful under the soft glow of sunrise. Daniel rose early, as he always did, but this morning carried a different feeling. The events of the night still sat in his thoughts, not as fear, but as something unfamiliar yet meaningful. He moved quietly, careful not to disturb his guest, and began preparing a simple breakfast over the fire, letting the steady rhythm of routine bring him clarity. The woman stirred as the scent of food filled the room. She sat up slowly, the blanket still wrapped around her shoulders, her expression calmer than before. The exhaustion that once weighed heavily on her face had softened, replaced by a quiet awareness of safety. Daniel greeted her with a small nod, keeping his tone gentle and respectful. He offered her food and water, placing them within reach without stepping too close. She accepted with gratitude, her hands still slightly trembling, though no longer from fear, but from the long journey she had endured. After a few moments of silence, she began to speak more clearly. She told him her name was Ayanna, and that she came from a nearby Apache community. Her words carried a quiet strength as she explained the conflict she had fled. There had been violence, disagreement, and growing danger within her tribe's territory, forcing her to leave behind everything familiar. The journey had not been easy. Days without rest, nights exposed to the cold, and constant uncertainty about what lay ahead. Yet she had continued, driven by the hope of survival. Daniel listened closely, giving her his full attention. The mention of the ritual from the night before returned to his mind, and he realized how much he had misunderstood. Ayanna explained that it was not what he had assumed, but rather a tradition rooted in survival during harsh conditions. In moments of extreme cold, seeking warmth and protection from another person was seen as an act of trust, not something to be questioned or feared. Her explanation was calm and sincere, offering clarity that replaced the confusion of the night before. Understanding this, Daniel felt a quiet sense of regret for his earlier uncertainty. He had tried to act with respect, but now he saw the situation more clearly. He apologized in a simple and honest way, not with many words, but with sincerity in his voice. Ayanna acknowledged his gesture with a small, understanding smile. There was no blame in her expression, only acceptance. In that moment, the distance between them seemed to fade, replaced by mutual respect and a shared sense of understanding that neither had expected. Over the next few days, the cabin became a place of quiet recovery. Daniel offered what he could, fresh food, clean water, and simple clothing to replace what had been worn and torn. He never asked more than necessary, allowing Ayanna to share only what she felt comfortable revealing. In return, she helped where she could, bringing a sense of balance to their temporary arrangement. Their conversations remained simple but meaningful, built on patience rather than pressure, and understanding rather than assumption. As time passed, Ayanna regained her strength. The weariness in her movements faded, replaced by confidence and calm. Daniel noticed the change, recognizing that her journey, though difficult, had not broken her spirit. He offered guidance about the surrounding land, pointing out safe paths and nearby areas where she could find support. His actions were practical, but carried a deeper intention, to ensure that when she left, she would not face the same uncertainty that had brought her to his door. What began as a strange and uneasy encounter slowly transformed into something far more meaningful. Two strangers, shaped by different worlds and experiences, had found a way to coexist with respect and understanding. There was no need for grand words or dramatic moments. Their connection was quiet, built on small acts of kindness and a willingness to see beyond fear. The cabin, once a place of solitude, had briefly become a space where trust could grow without force. When the time came for Ayana to continue her journey, there was a sense of quiet closure. No promises were made, and no expectations were set. Yet both understood that something important had taken place. In the vast and often unforgiving landscape of the American frontier, they had chosen compassion over suspicion and understanding over judgment. It was a simple story, but one that carried lasting meaning. Proof that even in the most uncertain moments, humanity could still find its way forward.